What's up, everybody, and welcome to today's episode that is not of Kingdom Rivals, but this episode is actually going to be a little bit behind the scenes of kind of my planning process and some suggestions if you're unsure about a build or want to try something really kind of abstract or crazy that you haven't done before, just to make things a little bit easier and to make your supplies a lot more efficient in survival, because making big builds, making weird builds, making an idea that you just have in the moment, sometimes can waste a lot of resources or waste a lot of time, especially since actually building something in survival, if it's weirdly shaped or tall or floating, then you're going to need a lot of scaffolding or ways to build up there, and that's just a lot of time of back and forth, or a lot of consumption of materials like rockets that can fly up to the top. So today, we're not on the realm, we're actually in my testing world. And this world, as you can see around me, is actually pretty devoid of a lot of things, except for the test carriage and a couple of house designs that that probably look familiar, but there are slight things that have changed from taking them from the testing world over into the castle and what I actually ended up building. So I highly recommend, if you are making big builds or maybe trying a style that you've never done before, then get a testing world. So basically set it up. I would recommend one of two things depending on what your strategy is. If you just want to test out a build for what it is and it's possibly small, it doesn't matter what the landscape is, it's independent of kind of space and what where it's going to be placed in the world, I highly recommend having a testing world that is a super flat world, so just like you see around me. And then when you're building it, or generating it rather, generate it without the structures. That's going to get rid of the villages and stuff. You can generate it with structures, but if you really fill up this testing world or have it for a really long time, then it's gonna get full of a bunch of stuff. And so having all this space around you to kind of build whatever you want, test out redstone, test out builds, test out small things, test out pixel art or whatever it may be, it's just a lot easier if there isn't stuff in your way that you have to clear out. Tip number 2, set it to peaceful, because especially in a super flat world, you'll get a ton of slime. So basically, why I wanted to bring you guys here today is because I'm actually going to test out building something that I've never built before and is kind of out of the realm of anything that I've ever built before. This test world is not my first. I've had one previously that sadly somehow got deleted when I was going through some old worlds, and so it had a lot of stuff. I'll see if I can put up some screenshots that were saved from that area or from that world to show you guys some of the stuff that I had in there, but it's really kind of an area for you to build whatever you want to build. So I had redstone designs, I had buildings, I had statues, all kinds of things. And the benefit of having a testing world is that you can test out things for the small stuff. So these houses that you see behind me, they are basically exactly the same house. They're mirrored from each other, but the base house design, minus the roof, is exactly the same. But the main difference between them, as you can probably tell, is the roof shape. So personally, I like both of them. But when I translated it into the world, I preferred the one with the taller and more pitched roof. Or not the pitched roof, but this one. It's actually called the gambrel style roof. And it's really similar to like an A-frame style, but it's the blocks and the order of which you place them are slightly different, and so it ends up being a little less pointy like my towers and a little bit more kind of rounded on the sides. And I really liked it for the style of the castle and everything that I was kind of building in that area. That just kind of fit more than just the super angular standard, just little pitched roof. So you can see from behind me that how much something just changing your roof style can change the look of a build. And that's what's great about a testing world, is it's really, really easy to throw together these designs and then change just little things amongst them, because you're in creative, you have cheats, you can do whatever you need to do, and that way you can test out a lot of stuff relatively quickly. Now, my tip for you, if you are building a large build, so let's say you want to test out a mega base or a city or a town, or a build that is inherently changed by the land and by the shape of the land, I would highly recommend setting up your testing world in whatever seed you're going to be using. Or if you don't know what seed you're using and you just want to kind of mess around with more organic shapes and something that isn't just totally flat, then get a world that is just a normal Minecraft world. You can still set it up to where the daylight cycle is off, so you can see the sun is just staying right above me and it doesn't move. That keeps it from turning to nighttime. You can turn off the weather cycle so that it doesn't just rain on you. If you want to test a build in rain or a thunderstorm or anything like that, then you can just with commands by setting the weather to specific things. But if you're building your base or testing out your base, highly, highly, highly recommend actually building it in a real Minecraft world and not just a super flat. Because you're actually going to see how it works with the land, you're going to see how it works with the environment around it. And if you already have a build established, so like for instance my castle on the realm, get a copy of the world and then just set your mode to creative, because once you log off, even if it's originally a survival world, you're going to stay in whatever game mode you are at the time of logging off. So if you log off in creative, you're always going to be in creative unless you change it. So I highly recommend that if you're actually trying to see how something works with the land. Now, if you're building a castle and you just want to test out a tower or a roof design, then you can just do that in a super flat world. You don't need to generate a whole Minecraft world just for that. If you want to, by all means. So what I'm actually going to be working on today is building a dragon. This is something that I've never built before, but my kingdom is Dragon's Keep, so I think it'd be really, really cool if we actually had some dragons around the castle. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get the blocks that I plan on using in my inventory, or at least that I think I plan on using. This is the first time that I'm trying out this build, and so I don't exactly know what I really want to use. I do know that I have a base idea in my head that I want the color scheme to be black, purple, and cyan. Or white, purple, and cyan, depending on whichever block palette I plan on using. So I think I'm gonna go with black instead of white, just because I live in a frozen biome. So the ground is covered in snow. So depending on what view you have of the dragon, it might not be very visible. So that's one thing to consider when you're building something, is the environment that it's going to be in. And it doesn't rule out the possibility of making it black, but I'm just thinking that for now, or for making it white, I'm just thinking for now that making it black would be a little bit easier to see. And the benefit of having a design in the test world and trying new things is you know exactly what you're building, you know exactly the shape, the size, how all the blocks work out. And so you don't really need to worry as much about stressing out that you don't exactly know what to build, or you don't want to waste materials, or build something that's super high in the sky or it's floating and then it ends up being something you don't really like. And so that's always a huge bummer when that happens. So I'm getting my blocks together. I don't know if I'm going to need all these. I just have some ideas for what I think would be pretty cool. And to make this a little bit easier on myself, I am going to build the dragon first, essentially just kind of laying out flat. So if you just look from a top-down view, it would be more of a silhouette. And from the side view, you wouldn't see a whole lot because everything is kind of all on the same plane. But my idea behind this is that if I can build it flat and know the proportions and know how the blocks are working together and all of those details, then I can probably translate that into more organic shapes because I already know the amount of blocks that I need to use in order to make it. And so I'm just kind of gathering all of the things, and I think that this is all that I need. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure. This is the first time that I'm building this. I didn't have a super concrete idea for what video I wanted to make this week. Of course, we could just continue stuff at the castle. So with this, I'm pretty sure that I don't need anything else. So my idea behind the blocks that I have is I'm thinking the bulk of the dragon's body will be made up of the blackstone blocks. I'm thinking it would look cool if we possibly added some spikes to the dragon, and I was thinking it would be neat if we utilized the new amethyst cluster blocks or one of the other sized amethyst buds, which I'll look into if I get that far. And then depending on how big it is, which I think I'm going to try to make it quite large, I might use some of the pointed dripstone for dragon's teeth. I know I've seen a lot of pictures on like Reddit and online of people making cool entrances with like giant dragon skulls and stuff like that where they use the pointed dripstone as teeth, and it looks pretty cool. So we're gonna see if it gets that big, then I will probably use those for the teeth. I don't know if I'm actually going to make it quite that large because it might look weirdly disproportional if it's too small and then it has like a few giant teeth in its mouth. And then these glass blocks, I'm thinking of making the wings and a lot of the webbing in the wings transparent with the glass blocks. And so I think that would look pretty cool. So at this point, I'm basically going to set off building. So I just wanted to check in with you guys and give you a little bit of a progress update. So this kind of long chain of blackstone isn't really super important. It's just kind of a sort of idea for how long I want it to be, maybe. But the main thing that I wanted to show you guys is you can kind of see a bit of shape forming in this. So I've really been doing my best to look at this from all angles to determine if there's stuff I need to change. This part that's coming up here is kind of the neck design, and really this whole time I've just kind of been going back and forth and just really kind of toying with the design to make it look nicer from all angles. And as you can see, I haven't gotten super duper far in this at all, because we basically just have like the start of the chest area and the start of the neck. Now the neck will probably just kind of continue in this same pattern, kind of up and around. I haven't really tried tackling the head yet because I'm pretty sure that's going to be really kind of a difficult thing to handle. And basically what I've just kind of done so far is just kind of start with sort of a circle, and then I kind of made it an oval. And then I've just kind of been playing around with the shapes around everything else, because if you just make a bunch of concentric circles, I'm sure it would work. I don't necessarily know that it would look the best. And so I kind of started with some concentric circles, and then it started to look really, really blocky and kind of awkward. And so I came back into those areas and added some of the half slabs just to make some of the lines and contours a lot smoother. So like under here where this slopes up, there's a lot of half slabs, pretty much every other block, to make that a lot more gentle slope. And we've got some half slabs up here as well to kind of make this a gentler slope back up, like the head is kind of coming down and then back up. And then towards the top, as well as the sides, and everything's a little bit difficult to see just because it is all the blackstone, but I chose this block because to me it kind of looks a little like dragon scales. or just scales in general, and so I figured it would be a perfect block to use for this project. So up here, if I just continued with the concentric circles, I would have gotten a lot more rectangles, and so I kind of rounded out areas up here and built up with the half slabs. And then same thing on the sides here, so you can see this is kind of a weird, not exactly egg shape. And then I've just gradually been working my way back. So I'll decide the outermost shape for all of the portions. So like the side walls are all the same, but the top and the bottom are each different, because I want the slope of the belly to be a little bit different from the top, and both of those are going to be different from the sides, because this isn't it's a dragon, so it's not supposed to be like a tube that's super uniform on the top and bottom and the sides and all the way down. I'm not really going for just like a cylinder. I do want it to look a bit more organic, and so I just wanted to pause here because I have been working for quite a while and going back and forth with shapes and adding things and removing things, and even from this side to this side, not everything is exactly the same, just because it is a little bit difficult to mirror it when everything looks the same, and I've been going back and forth. But they both have the same general idea, and then basically I'm just going to continue working my way back and kind of sloping this inward to get ready for the tail of the dragon. So, okay guys, so I just wanted to check in again. At this point I have constructed basically everything except for the head, because honestly I'm a little afraid to construct the head. I've been looking at a lot of other pictures of Minecraft builds of dragons to kind of get some ideas, but once again I don't want to copy somebody else's build. I really want to try to build this completely on my own, just with some inspiration from other people who have built dragons before. So at this point you can just kind of see the tail. I think I like the proportions of everything. The only thing is I don't know if the wings are slightly too small. So I may potentially make the wings slightly bigger in the future, just to see what a difference that would make. But I'm really liking how everything has turned out. Obviously the wings are just 2D right now. Ideally in the future I'd like to possibly beef up the kind of bones or ribs that are in the wings, to make them a bit more proportional to the rest of it. So I may try that before making the whole wing design bigger, but I'm really liking how this is looking so far. So just wanted to show you guys where we're at right now. I think I've made both sides symmetrical for most of the body. I'm sure I've missed a half slab or a block or two, but I am really excited about this so far. I really like the design. I'm excited with how it's turned out. I think up to this point it's probably taken me about maybe 5 or 6 hours to get to this point, which I don't know, I think it was time well spent to achieve this result. So at this point I have actually updated the wings to make them slightly bigger, just a little bit more proportional for the size of the dragon. And as you can also see, I have actually built the head. So one thing that I think I might do in the future is make the neck a little bit longer and possibly make the torso slightly larger. But this is the head, and so for the chin I used the smooth basalt, not polished basalt, but smooth basalt, which is found around the geodes in the 1.17 update, and the rest of it is just the same black stone. And then for the horns I used the calcite coming up, and then for the eyes I've just got some sea lanterns and some glass. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. The last step would be the legs, but I realized that I actually didn't give myself enough room really to come down and build them. So one thing I might do is kind of clear out the area underneath the dragon. So I'm really excited for the first time building this of how it's turned out. For the wings, I originally started with using an oval generator to kind of get this shape, but then I sort of abandoned that strategy because it just wasn't looking right. And so I just kind of took my knowledge of curves and lines and everything to make my own designs. And then I essentially started by making this inner curve and then the outer one. And then I made this back one, the back part of the wing, and then the two in the middle I added last and just kind of made it look like the curves sort of would fit in between the inside and the outside edge. For the horns, I did kind of use a oval generator to get the original just kind of baseline, but then I built up and around it and sort of changed that original shape so that it's not really recognizable as an oval anymore. It just kind of looks like horns. And for the head, I actually was doing some research because I really had no idea where to start on this part. And in one of the tutorials that I found, it was recommended to start with a sphere and then kind of build off of that. So that's exactly what I did. I just pulled up the sphere generator and went down to a reasonable size for the rest of the dragon's body. And then basically just started building the upper jaw on off of that. And I wanted this dragon to not really have a super pointy face, but more of a rounded face. Think of like Toothless in How to Train Your Dragon, where the face's curves and edges are a lot softer than what you might see in sort of other like fantasy dragons. And then just to distinguish the lower jaw, so this didn't all look like one blob, I just chose a slightly lighter color. But yeah, this is just so cool looking. And I actually was wondering what I was going to do for the thumbnail of this video, because if I take a picture of the dragon, then that kind of gives away the whole thing. I was thinking I could do like a face-on view, which you guys will know because you'll have seen the thumbnail, but at this point in time, I'm still making this, so I don't know. And then one thing I considered was just looking at the map and making it from there. And I have to say, this looks really, really cool on a map from that top-down view. It's just so awesome. I'm super proud of it, super happy with how it's going. I think, especially seeing it like this, I think a lot of the shapes are working together really nicely, and I think proportionally, it's okay. For being my first one, and not really being an artist in terms of like visual arts, I'm not super familiar with like scale and proportion and ensuring that everything is to the exact proportions. I think this is pretty close. I think that this is pretty good. If you're actually familiar with that and you're like, no, that's way off, you should change this, let me know. But I think the last thing is just the legs. So I think I'm going to clear out some of this area below the dragon and see if I can figure out the leg design, which I have toyed around with a little bit, and I'm realizing that that might even be harder than the head. So we're just getting more and more complicated as we're going throughout this process. But just wanted to share you guys the update. The wings are a little bit different than the update that I just gave, but I think they look a little bit better, a little bit bigger, because after I filmed that update, I was talking to some people and was like, these seem pretty small, but just so slightly, and they agreed, so I went through and changed it. But this is so cool. Alrighty, I'm gonna work on this and then give you guys another update. The dragon has been completed, so I've added the legs, and you might be thinking there are only 2 legs. Yes. I started designing this with this leg design and kind of the thickness and the widths and everything up more towards the shoulder area, and realized that this dragon isn't really big enough to have 4 full-size legs. So I decided to change my plan from a 4-legged dragon to more of the wyvern style, which is just the 2-legged dragon that has 2 wings and 2 legs, and kind of uses its wings a little bit as well as like the front arms when it needs to climb or kind of get around or stuff like that. So this is the completed design. I'm so happy with how this turned out. This was a lot of hours of just placing blocks and getting rid of them and completely starting over some things, and I am just so excited with how this turned out. This obviously is only built kind of on the horizontal plane, so the next step would be to take this and more animate it so that it looks like it's kind of in a scene as opposed to just kind of the base construction. And so what I think I'm probably going to do before I bring this into the actual SMP will probably be to recreate the areas where I'm going to put it. So this one I'm thinking I want on top of my bell tower, which is the building with the domed roof. And so I'm probably just going to build a recreation of that dome somewhere in this open space and build the dragon on top of that, because then I can get a better idea of how it's going to look when it's kind of interacting with the structures around it as opposed to just kind of floating in space. But this is just so cool. I'm so happy with how this turned out. With the legs, you can see they're pretty beefy, and then the feet, they do kind of go under the world, so it is, or not under it, but kind of cut through the land, so it is a little hard to get a good view of those. You can't place any blocks below y=0, and this bottommost part is actually on the same level with the bedrock, so that's as low as I can go with this. But I really like how all the shapes and kind of the contours and everything turned out with this. This by far is probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever built. I think this the next closest thing would actually be a really big tree, which is another kind of organic shape that can look really wonky if you don't quite get it just right, but there isn't really a right way to do it either. So this just looks super cool. I went ahead and made maps of the area just to see what it looked like from the top, to see if it would still kind of hold up and look as cool, and I certainly think that it does. But yeah, so this video is a little bit different than the typical SMP video or just episode of Kingdom Rivals, where you have seen me kind of build a lot of detail things and do a lot of the really minutia in terms of building and kind of throw some tips in there. This video is more of an encouragement to try something new. If you don't play Minecraft and you just watch these videos because you like to watch the videos, it applies to the rest of life too. If there's something you haven't tried because you've been afraid that you'll get it wrong, just try it and it will probably turn out cool. Now this definitely isn't perfect. You can look up how to build a dragon in Minecraft tutorials that will probably do it much faster than I was able to build this, and will give you probably a much better final product as well. But I didn't really want to follow a tutorial, and I didn't exactly want to give you guys a block for block tutorial because I would probably be editing about 12 hours of footage if I was doing a block for block tutorial or even a time lapse. It would still wind up just being way too long. There was so much back and forth with this, and that's just how it is with Minecraft building. Build something, if you don't like it or you like parts of it, just try tweaking stuff and seeing if you can get to something that you do like. But gosh, this view is just so cool. I'm just so excited with how this turned out. Yeah, we will be seeing these guys in the SMP hopefully pretty soon. I need to go and make sure that I have enough blackstone so that I can build this guy. I also want to build a white version of the dragon, probably either with calcite or with quartz. And either of those are going to take a lot of resource gathering, because the calcite I'm going to need to go and find a lot of geodes, which will take quite a bit of time and remove all the calcite from them. And if I decide to go with the quartz, then I'm going to be spending a lot of time and a lot of resources smelting up the quartz. But I have quite a bit of blackstone stored already. I'm going to grab some more and make sure I have enough smooth basalt for the chin and lower jaw, as well as getting a lot of the purple glass ready. But this is just really, really awesome. I hope you guys like it. If you guys have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them down below. And yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. It's a little bit of a different video, but we're kind of doing some future planning for Dragon's Keep. The name of the kingdom is Dragon's Keep, so we might as well have some dragons in there, just to tie things together and give us some more of the backstory. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope to see you guys in the next one, and if you haven't subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe. Bye!